All right, good evening. Welcome to the September 2022 meeting of the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club, and good to see everybody. We've been out since June, so looking forward to a good meeting tonight, and just welcome everybody and everybody online. And just looking out in the audience here, do we have anybody on my right-hand side that's a first-time visitor tonight? Anybody on the left side? Like everybody's been here before, so I just had a couple quick announcements. We're looking for people to volunteer for the board of directors coming up in 2023 here. We've got a couple slots that'll be opening up as people are stepping down to take a break, and we're also looking, we really do need some people. We've probably got about 2 or 3 positions open at least. And if anybody's interested, let Dave or myself know. And we're also looking for some help with our newsletter. Bruce Knoll's done a phenomenal job over the last 25 years, and he's looking to retire from that position. And so we'll be looking to transition from a traditional style of newsletter that we've been doing to more of an email kind of format, kind of like the Railroad Museum and a number of other organizations do now. And that'll allow us some more flexibility with links and other things to do it more of an electronic format. And then we're also going to try to make it so that they can also be printed out, and we can mail those to those that don't have email and still want kind of a printed copy. So if anybody's interested in helping take over that role and design and stuff, Chip Sherman and Kirk Thode are working to transition that. And so if anybody's interested in that, we could definitely use your help, anywhere from like a art kind of background or email or technical background. And we're always looking for content as well to put on our newsletter. So if anybody has any content, please send that along and we'll get it taken care of. On to you, Dave.
All righty. All right. We talked about that. If you could silence your phones so that they don't ring in the middle of our show, that it's usually me. It's usually embarrassing if my phone rings, but anyway, it's a polite thing. I guess for news announcements, there was a note in the Alamosa newspaper yesterday that the person who's been the receiver for the San Luis and Rio Grande, the old Rio Grande stuff that runs around the valley, it looks like they're probably got a buyer in Omnitrax, which is the people that run the Great Western and several other short lines around the country. That's still developing, so I guess it's subject to change, but that seems to be the direction it's going. Also, probably the biggest news this week, and you guys may have heard this already, that there's an impending strike probably among the freight railroads. I have to say it for the folks at home that just may not know. So the guys in the front row, they know, but and so this is affecting Amtrak too. And I was talking to David, our presenter tonight earlier, about this, and it affects some of the dispatchers and whatnot too. If you guys have questions about this, since he actually works for a railroad, we could take a couple questions, but I told him we don't want to get him in trouble since this is being recorded and fired. But if you're willing to take questions and anybody here has questions, if you guys want to know something, raise your hand. So, okay, what do you got? Would you take a mic back to Dave? It goes way beyond that, but yeah. Come on up, Dave. Come on up, Dave. Yeah. I think this is all a lot more complicated than what people think. And, it's the funny thing is, it seems like the railroad management has been saying that labor does nothing to contribute to their profits. So that's kind of indicative of where the mindset seems to be.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh, this is David Calballido-Jeans.
Yeah,
He's our presenter tonight. Yeah.
Just to give a quick background, I worked for BNSF Railway. I was a conductor in Needles, California in 2008. All right, cool, sweet, awesome. Hi, everybody. Came out to Denver in 2019 or late 2019 for engine program. Became a student engineer there. Then COVID happened. Because of the regulations of the CDC, we couldn't have 3 people in the cab. I ended up going back to Needles, working as conductor there, and been here since June. to restart the engineer program. So I've been halfway through my student engineer program. Basically, as much as I know about the strike, it's probably about the same amount as everyone else. We're been negotiating a contract for the last 3 years. We've been working without a contract for 3 years. So we have, because of the Railway Labor Act, there's a lot of steps we have to do before we're able to do any kind of self-help. It's about 16 steps. We're on step 15, going into step 16. If no agreement is reached by midnight 01 on Friday Eastern time, then we're allowed to self-help. So that's what we're waiting on. Congress can force us back to work though. So a lot of Congress is saying that they're probably going to make us go back to work. So we'll see what happens. It's mainly quality of life issues and whatnot. And obviously increase in pay. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be real exciting times to see. I believe the last railroad strike was 1991. So it's been a while since something like this has happened. And it's been in any time. The last time the PEB board, the Presidential Emergency Board, was established was probably 1991. So this is a real historic moment in the rail industry.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that some of the railroads would like to have one-man crews, but it's a lot of those things about time off and, do you have turnaround time, and do you have anything to do that makes it worth living?
And to address the two-man crew issue, when that was brought up in the Presidential Emergency Board, and they determined that that's not a sufficient reason to negotiate, that it was brought back down to local arbitration. So the White House doesn't believe that two-man crews is something being talked about nationally based off the PEB board. So little fun fact there.
Anybody else have a question about this strike topic? Brian.
All class 1 railroads, because we all are on one national legal system. Now, don't quote me on this. I believe CSX isn't. They negotiate under a different agreement. I don't know for sure, but UP, BNSF, KCS, NS, I know for sure, and the parties.
I think CP and CN.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
So
yeah, we've been. I think as COVID came along, there's been a little bit of a transportation issue, so this could be a wrinkle.
The main thing that's going on right now as a result of the potential strike is the embargoes of some cargoes. Railroads have announced, just letting the customers know that there may be delays on their shipments because of this. So yeah, and Amtrak as well. It's yeah, can't run trains if there's no dispatchers. So it's
any other questions about this topic? Any other announcements for like current events or something like that? Chip, come use a microphone, because the folks at home want to see you.
Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, Chip, here he is, live and in living color.
there you go. Local news on the joint line. BNSF crews manned a UP locomotive to bring up the Caltrain double-decker commuter train out of the test center today. It's sitting at Hogan's Alley here in Denver. It's headed for Caltrain for the new electric operation. And meanwhile, down there around Pueblo, a place called NA Junction, the Colorado Pacific has finally received not one, but 2 SD-40s painted up for their operation on the old Missouri Pacific counter line.
They're good looking, blue engines.
There you go. We'll be down there next week or tomorrow.
I just see what I see on the internet. So.
Right.
Haven't had time to run down, sorry.
And because Colorado's always running on a high, over there at a place called Moffett, Colorado in the San Luis Valley, there's 4 railroad cars at the Area 420, which is a marijuana co-op farm operation. They've got a nice Missouri Pacific Dome car, and that's also where the Wabash Observation Club Lounge went. And those retain their trucks and
so you're able to
newly
sit
built
in there
truck.
and smoke? Is that
Well,
the deal?
the dome car will be eventually made into a dispensary, and you might be right. That's a genius idea. We'll have to ask Whitney, the woman whose brainchild this and had these cars moved all the way from Alamosa, Colorado, about 40 miles north to Moffett. So if you're in that
better than seeing
neighborhood,
them scrapped.
Yeah, it's better to see them scrapped, and stay tuned. Never a dull moment in Colorado. So cheers.
All right, slide over here so the folks at home can see you. What's up?
Hello, I'm John Stevens. The Colorado Railroad Museum has a large collection of EDM, engineering drawings, possibly thanks to a lot of you guys.
Oh,
Yeah,
EMD. Yeah. Is it?
no, EDM.
Okay.
Engineering drawings.
Okay.
So
okay.
these are like the valuation maps, also paint schemes, design for things, all railroads. And it's a big project and it's underway. So the bottom line is that you won't have to go to Golden to look at EDM anymore. It should be available online. That's not my part. I'm digitizing it.
I'm sure that's a big job. Yeah, it's going to take a while. How far along through it, percentage-wise, do you think you are?
Well, I don't know where the end is.
There is no end.
Yeah, I've dived down the hole and I'm about 3 terabytes in so far. So
All right. If we don't have any other announcements, I guess we've sort of pre-introduced Dave, but I'll let him come intro his show. So yeah, David Calballido-Jeans came up here. He's working out of Denver BNSF right now, but there you go. Tell us about your show, sir.
Okay, so as Dave said, I'm David Calballido-Jeans. Kind of brief history about myself. Born and raised in Southern California, LA, San Pedro, Port of LA area. 18, went to Arizona to go to school at Northern Arizona University, studied photography there. After school, hired out with the railroad in 2018, Needles, California. With that, bounced around. I've worked at 10 terminals. Currently still qualified from pretty much LA, Hobart Yard to Belen, New Mexico, then from Amarillo, Texas, all the way to Cheyenne, Wyoming, then up to Sterling, Colorado, east all the way to Dodge City, Kansas, and south down to Las Vegas, New Mexico. It's pretty much all the rail I've seen in my little career. I've been with the railroad for 4 years. It's been a blast. It's had its moments, long nights, long days. Chip, you know, so that's yeah, it's a blast. It's and so I've been real fortunate to be able to see a lot of this country and a lot of territory that a lot of people haven't been able to see, and a lot of stories and experiences and whatnot. As far as the rail fanning side of me, I started taking videos of trains in probably about 2008. That started taking me to the Fullerton train station and met a lot of people there and getting involved in that. Slowly went from videos to photography. Done a lot of stuff for Trains magazines over the last few years. Work with them. Done stuff for BNSF, AAR, AccuWeather for photography stuff, GE as well. So it's just been a real awesome hobby to be a part of. And in 2018, 2019, parents retired. They moved out to Valentine, Arizona, about 30 miles northeast of Kingman, Arizona. And that is home. Oh, I have a clicker. I can use that. I forgot about that. That's home. So they live there, literally right on the main line, hence living on the Transcon. And this is kind of a photo story collection of my little filming experience of going to school at NAU, living right by the main line, and just kind of give a little brief history of the Seligman Subdivision. It runs from Needles, California to Winslow, Arizona. Roughly about 298 miles of railroad. It's one crew district. You have Winslow crews, Needles crews. Up and prior to 1982 or 86, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was crew changed at Seligman. Needles guys went from Needles, California to Seligman, hand off the train to Winslow guys who ran it back to Winslow. Oh, my clicker did work. Okay. There we go. All right, cool. So here's the part of the grade profile of the Seligman Subdivision. We start off at Needles. Topak is the lowest point. It's where the Colorado River goes through its border of Arizona and California. It's about 500 feet above sea level. From there, you take your train, you're grinding up a 1.4% grade all the way up to Kingman, Arizona. If you take at Kingman, there's a track separation. Main 2 is the more gentle grade at about 1.2, 1.4. Main 1, the steeper grade, comes up to about 1.8, 1.9% grade. Oh, wait. Where's there it is. There you go down through Kingman, climb up Wallapai, go through the little flats, 70-mile-an-hour track through there. Come up and you come into Valentine, home sweet home. It's go through Crozier and just another grind all the way up to Yamapai Summit, right up there, 5,700 feet above sea level. You didn't go down, more 70-mile-an-hour track going through Audley Flats, Seligman, hit Crookton. At Crookton, it's a very historic place because of the line change of the Crookton cutoff. Prior to 1956, the Atlantic Pacific had the original railroad, and later to Santa Fe, original railroad cut off at Crookton, go through Ash Fork, and then climb up Ash Fork to Williams. At that point, the railroad was a 4% grade. After the Crookton cut off, they decided to cut through, and I don't remember how much mileage they saved, but they made the grade about 1% all the way to Williams Junction. The Santa Fe, after their first year of using that, was able to save $1 million using that new railway. Track speed at that time became 90 miles an hour. So as you see, this is the current Crookton cutoff. You come through Eagles Nest, and like I said, 1% grade all the way up to Williams Junction. And then from Williams Junction to about Flagstaff, it's just a bunch of undulation. This is Knuckle Alley for the engineers out there. There was a lot of scary moments running trains through there. Actually, a few months ago, we had a train. It was 14,000 feet long, about 10,000 tons. We had 3 motors on the head end, 4 motors in the middle, and there was problems with it all day. Well, once we dog caught it en route, we took off, and we realized the dynos did not work, or dynamic brakes did not work in the middle DPs. It took full service to keep that train going from running out of control, going down the hill. It is an experience. And we told dispatch about this, and they tell us to keep on going. So then once you hit Reardon, which is the top of the hill, Flagstaff, it's about 7,400 feet above sea level. It is the second highest point on the BNSF system, first being the going over Raton, third being Palmer Lake. And once you go over, you come down to Flagstaff. Flagstaff is about 6,900 feet, go through some more undulation, and then 70 mile an hour from pretty much Darling all the way into Winslow. Run time on a hot shot Z train UPS, best I ever did it was, I think it was like 6 hours, 30 something minutes. And they parted the seas for us. Mostly every other train I caught off the extra board, I died en route. I had 12, 13, 14-hour days on that run. But it was a long trip and a very scenic trip. I mean, you see Red Rocks, Coconino Forest, and you'll see through these photos just the kind of railroading we have out there. So this is home. Literally, it doesn't get much better than this. That's why when people ask me, what's your favorite place to go take photos? I usually say my bedroom. And so it's fun living right by the railroad tracks, and especially working that line. A lot of the crews have learned that I live there. They're real cool about it. A lot of the guys honk, they know about us. And inside the house, you really don't hear the trains. I mean, you hear the rumble. You feel it's a relatively new house. But the previous owner who lived there when we bought the house, she said, you don't notice the trains when they go by. It's you notice when they stop going by, because this line sees about 80 trains in a 24-hour period. So when you don't hear a train for a couple of hours, you're wondering what the heck's going on. There must be track maintenance. There must be something. This line sees between intermodal, mixed freight, unit grain trains, ethanol trains, steel coil trains, occasional coal train, and we have the daily Amtrak Southwest Chief, number 3, number 4. And this is an exterior shot of the home. As another train we also have is military trains that come through out of Southern California and Daggett, Barstow area, transporting the troop trains through there. So this is the main house where everyone lives, whatnot. This house back here, this old little shanty, is in the original, from what we gather, original Atlantic Pacific section house built somewhere between 1884 and 1886. The main reason it's still around is there was a person living in it, renting it from the Santa Fe. And then one day the Santa Fe came by, it's like, hey, we're tearing it down, but if you pay us $10,000, that's yours. He was able to come up with $10,000, keep the house, and it's the only one left in the state from our understanding. And here's the view from the tracks. This is when I was deadheading the Winslow, riding the third motor of a hotshot Z train and coming through this 40 mile an hour or 45. I'm going to go with 40. I think it's a 40. Yeah, 40 curve, 45 mile an hour curve. Sorry, 40 mile an hour curve. And so, like I said, this is the section house. We painted it in the summer of 2021. From what we gathered off of some of the history, this was what the original paint might have been. The green might have been a little bit lighter, but this for the Atlantic Pacific era. This is what the paint would have been. This is a gravity-fed water tower for the original property. It now has an actual water pump or on a well, and then the house back in there. And these are the Music Mountains back in the background. And here's more of an aerial view of the whole region. if I'm lucky. Just a little fun fact: the commute from my parents' place when I do live with them when I'm working on Neil's, it's 98 miles each way to work, and I got a 90-minute call. So it's been long days out there. In the back, that is the entrance of the western entrance of Crozier Canyon. Probably arguably one of the most scenic locations on the whole Santa Fe Transcon. And again, more shots around the property. If you guys are familiar with the movie Easy Rider, James Fonda, all that stuff, the iconic poster for that movie that was around for dealers was taken at this location. And in the background, you can see the old water, the old water tower in that poster. And here's another photo of the water tower. Like I said, at the house, the grade is a 1.42% grade. And at night, when it's dead quiet, especially in the summer, you can hear those trains. If you're outside, you can hear those trains for about 30 minutes riding up the hill before they get to the house. It is quite an experience to see. And then also because we are in the middle of nowhere, and by middle of nowhere, I mean no cell service, no nothing out there. And the night sky is absolutely gorgeous out there. And then Thanksgiving dinner has always been fun at the house when family comes on over. I feel bad because I do, like I said, I do know some of these guys even before I hired it out, and you go look at the computer like, oh, Jim's working today and we're having turkey, but you know, it is what it is. So, and this is from the platform of the old section house, just to kind of give you an idea how close it is. Our fence line is right about right there, all the way up to the railroad right away. Route 66 Railways is a book by why am I drawing a blank on his name? Oh, he's going to thank you. Yes, great gentleman, amazing human being. Great book. If you ever get the chance to pick up a copy, talks about the Santa Fe along Route 66 between LA and Chicago. A lot of great photography in there. Again, these are just more series of just photos around the property. And then these are our neighbors' horses. So we have the benefit of having horses and not being responsible for them. And then monsoon season's always been stellar out there. Monsoon season runs from June 15th to October 1st. This year, monsoon has been quite strong compared to years past. I talked to my dad on the phone earlier today. He said just today alone, they got 1.25 inches of rain in just about an hour or so. Here's off the property, but kind of looking back towards the direction. This is Valentine Curve. Very, very famous shot, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of old Santa Fe photos taken from these rocks. Kind of look over the whole landscape of, like I said, the Music Mountains in the background. Train goes all the way around back in the Crozier Canyon. The main reason for this curve, there was a flood in the 1920s that wiped out the railway. And if you look about right here, you can see the old right-of-way where it used to go. And you see the old bridge stands here of the original right-of-way. And it's that's all like I said, that's the old original Atlantic Pacific. And then the flood came through. And then back in Crozier Canyon, you can't really see in this photo, but on the walls back here, someone drew the flood lines. And unfortunately, they've been kind of tagged up a little bit, but you can, if you know where it is, you can see it from the train. Kind of give you an idea how big the flood was. Here's another photo of Amtrak running about probably about 15 hours late. Amtrak goes by if they're on time. Westbound number 3 goes by the house about 11:30 at night. Eastbound number 4 goes about 2:30, 2:40 in the morning. So William Deal, who, if you were here for the last presentation, Amtrak engineer out there, almost all the time goes by no matter what hour of the night and wakes up with the whole neighborhood, which is just my parents, which they really appreciate. Same with a lot of the Amtrak guys. They've been real cool. Like I said, a lot of the freight guys also too. They give a little toots when they go by. Oh, there you go. Here's Valentine siding. You have East Valentine, West Valentine. It's double main track railway out there, but there are passing sidings or control sidings, as the technical term is. Here you have the H barbell, which is the Barstow of the Belen, New Mexico manifest train getting stopped, laying another manifest go around it. I don't remember why that was happening, but I remember it was there with a buddy of mine, Luke Ranch. We're out taking photos that day. It was about early January, and I remember it was about 15, 20 degrees that night. It was very cold, and we did not want to take photos, but we couldn't miss that opportunity of a night meet like that. It was working just a little bit. I think the clicker died. There we go. Here's a look at Valentine from high up on one of the rocks the surrounding area. That outer main is the siding. You have main 2, main 1. This Z train, Chicago San Bernardino Z train going through. Once that rear end clears about just behind this curve right here is 70-mile-an-hour track, pretty much all the way to Kingman, some 35 miles. And it's 70 miles an hour doesn't seem really that fast. You know, a lot of people especially on I-25 out here doing 80, 90 miles an hour. But I tell you, when you got 10,000 feet of train, those GE motors bounce a lot. It is quite impressive to see these trains hit that kind of speed. Same spot around Valentine, just right off of Route 66. Another standard manifest. We have quite a few manifests as PSR starts to take more and more of effect. We have less and less manifest trains. They just become longer, do more set outs en route. Valentine's very well known for being a spot to stage trains for your hotshot Z trains. Here we have a Q train. I don't remember if it was Alliance, Texas or Atlanta, Georgia to LA. Q train stopped here in the siding. The hotshot North Bay 9, it's the highest train on the whole system. It just crosses over in front of them. The GECX 2034 was at the time one of the demonstrator units before the new Tier 4 GEVOs. So I think this is around 2016 is when this shot was taken. And so this is before BNSF and UP, NS, CSX all put in their orders for these Tier 4s as GE was testing them for high altitude stuff. Yeah, I don't remember if it was a satellite or a plane or something, but something was going across the sky. And I remember being really mad about it because it went right through the Milky Way. But all the other shots didn't have the flashing thread on the point. And I was like, that's kind of what I wanted out of it. Here's down at Hackberry. A lot of people talk badly about the Transcon because it's all orange GEs, you know? Well, I figured the best way to get around the orange GEs is making sure you can't tell it's orange GE. So glint shots were my pride and joy for most of my college career out there. And so it was great because I was lazy. I would hang out, do whatever. And then 5 o'clock in the afternoon, go out of the house, hang out for an hour and find a train. And on the Transcon, it's really not that hard. Stand up time, you'll see at least one train in an hour, hopefully. Same thing around Hackberry. The Hackberry is probably about 7 miles down the road from the house. Rainstorms during monsoon season were always really nice, cooled everything down. Temperature, even at Valentine's about 4,100 feet. Temperatures get up to 107, 108 during the summer. In the winters, like I said, it gets down in the single digits. And we do get snow. I'll get a couple dustings of snow a year. More stuff around Hackberry. This is actually closer towards Antares. And you'll see later in the shots how long of a curve Antares is. Hackberry as well during the winter. And this is the eastern portion of Antares curve. And I need to fact check this, and I haven't been able to. But a lot of the Needles guys say that Antares curve is the longest continuous curve on the whole BNSF system. It is 70 mile an hour curve. Some guys were telling me, no, there's a curve on the Wellington, out by Wellington, somewhere in Kansas, Oklahoma, that's longer. I don't know, never been out there. I've been too lazy looking at the track charts to do the math to figure it out. That's more of a whole shot of the curve. Here's a military train going east. This is on the western end of the curve, just before it, during a monsoon storm, empty grain train heading east. I don't like Photoshop, so these are all natural. Here's the top of Crozier Canyon. Crozier Canyon, 25-mile-an-hour track. In June of 2018, there was a head-on collision there. A rail train was shoving back while a westbound stack train was proceeding at restricted speed through the blocks. By the time the two trains saw each other, the westbound freight train was about right there at the beginning of the curve. The rail train shoving back with those Herzog trucks was about right here. And the way it looked, they looked like they were on opposite ends of the main. And by the time they got to about center, they realized they weren't. They collided right about here. And the BNSF westbound train went into the creek down here. The brakeman and the other Herzog guy were able to jump out. The guy in the middle was not, and he perished in the accident. And there's been a lot of controversy of why that accident happened. The NTSB still hasn't released their full report. There's the preliminary report online if you're interested about. Kind of like weird fun fact. When you go over the rail there, you can still feel kind of a little bit of a bump where the accident happened. Here's the eastern portion of the Crozier Canyon, going through one of the many wash bridges through there. And Crozier Canyon during the winter, this is actually last February. William Deal was out there with me. So to show proof that he does shoot orange GEs every once in a while. And then this is looking the opposite direction. This is during the summer a few years before. Same rock. Here's more from the top of Crozier. There is a road that drives up to the top of Crozier, but you need four-wheel drive and a lift. At the time, I just had a two-wheel drive pickup truck. It was easier for me to drive halfway up the plateau and then hike up the rest. And so just to give you an idea, home is about right past that cut right there. So at the top, I walked all the way to about right here. I was able to pick up the Wi-Fi, so that's kind of cool. Here's more the top of Crozier. This during the winter. This time I did drive up. I was with Luke Renish. He had a big old 4x4 Chevy pickup, and we just sent it. And we got up on the three wheels, and I told myself, well, that was enough. I can just walk next time. I got those Chevrolet legs, so we'll make the best of it. You can see a little bit of the snow left on the Music Mountains back here. And here's the eastern portion. This is during a monsoon season, not as strong as it was this year, but close to, I believe this was 2016, 2017, when we had a very green monsoon season. And this is Truxton. Truxton's about 7 miles west of the house, or sorry, east of the house. Music Mountains in the background. Reason they're called the Music Mountains is, well, there's two stories. One is this kind of looks like music paper going across the mountains, and the other, the Walpi tribe, the local Native American tribe in the area, said that the way the wind blows through the mountains, it sounds like music. So those are the two explanations of why they were called that. This was, I believe, the Denver to San Bernardino Q train, which is a glorified loaded bare table train because it's all empty trailers, but they run it as a Q train. I do not know why. And it was going through Truxton. Here's an aerial photo from the top of Crozier Canyon looking to the east. This is the Truxton area. You can see Truxton siding. This was before the creation of the Truxton flyover. You'll see photos of that later in the slideshow. The Truxton flyover, it's now like kind of like Frost. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Frost, California on Cajon Pass, where the two mains naturally cross over each other. They've created that there as well. Main 2 branches out now and crosses over, becomes Main 1. This is the flyover. As you can see, we have an eastbound UPSZ train climbing over on Main 2. And right at the top of the bridge, there's a sign that says Main 1 is now on Main 1 coming down the hill, while an westbound stack train goes from Main 1 underneath the bridge going on the Main 2 coming down. The reason for this is because the grade separation east of Winslow, the Santa Fe, or technically the Atlantic Pacific, built the railroad left-hand running compared to most routes where it's right-hand running. The grade was more gentle for eastbound trains doing a left-hand running operation. As a result, at Winslow, they had to cross the trains over just control points, switches, dispatcher control switches. The railroad figured it'd be more profitable and more fluid to create a natural crossover like they have in Cajon Pass. Because going west of Truxton, Kingman Canyon, Ash Hill, a lot of places there's grade separation set up for right-hand running. They did not take into consideration that as they run longer trains, 14,000, 16,000 foot long trains, they do not fit in Belen for fueling operations as a left-hand running, so they end up crossing back over anyways. So it kind of bit them in a little bit in the butt, but they make it work. The Atlantic Pacific originally had crossovers built, I believe, in late 1800s. They were used all the way till about 1940 or 50. Don't quote me on that. But it was located at Crookton. This flyover was originally going to be placed in Crookton, but BNSF could not acquire the land in Crookton. Here's another photo of the flyover. This is taken with a drone. One of BNSF's 25th anniversary locomotives leads passenger special. This was coming back from LA going to Topeka, Kansas. I believe, if I remember correctly, this was part of the set that went down to LA for the Super Bowl. The other half of the set was still in LA doing some other excursions. And here's another photo of the crossover. Eastbound Z train going over, westbound stack down below. Another photo from a drone of an eastbound Z. And then the train going underneath the tracks is actually a tied down stack train. This is from last year. We were still during the supply chain crisis that's still ongoing. Because the ports were so backed up, trains couldn't get to the ports in time. Well, if you can't get the train to the port, you can't use the power for its outbound train. So you just create gridlock. So as a result, trains are being tied down all across the Cajon, Needles, and Seligman Subdivision, all the way out to Amarillo, Texas, being tied down in the middle of nowhere and then cutting their power off to take it to the ports to use for outbound trains. Here we get into Cherokee Canyon. This is east of Truxton, just a couple more miles. That's a tight little twists and curves between Truxton and Peach Springs. Again, you can see the old right-of-way kind of going through here. And I don't know when they did that realignment. I haven't been able to look up much information of it, but it's a great little view of the Music Mountains. Here's Peach Springs on the Walpi Reservation. Peach Springs at one point in time was a very big booming town for the railroad. Railroad had steam shops and whatnot there. It was also used as a helper district. Steam locomotive helpers were used to push trains over Yampai Hill. Here, this is, I believe it was in 2015. Ringling Brothers Circus train came through. So that was the last time the circus train came through the Transcon. Here's looking down at Peach Springs. This is the eastbound Z train coming through town. These mountains back here are the Cottonwood Mountains. They're towards the west of Valentine. And then looking down at Peach, eastbound stack train with 2 DP motors shoving up the hill. During a great monsoon storm. I just happened to have my camera with me. I was really happy I didn't take it out of the car that day. Here's more to kind of show that it does snow in Arizona, contrary to popular beliefs. Here it's, I believe this was on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve in 2015, 2016. Westbound train coming through the Crozier Canyon. This was taken from the property. This is down the property, more trains. This was on Christmas Eve. Westbound train coming through. And more westbound trains coming through. Right here, like I said, they're getting up to close to, they're at least doing 55 miles an hour because they're rear end still, but they're about to ready to start doing 70 miles an hour. And it is a trip going through snow at 70 miles an hour. Eastbound train grinding up the grade. Here, this little red schoolhouse. Kind of been abandoned for a few years. And but the story that I've been told was there's another bigger brick schoolhouse in Valentine. But this one was created because at the time, the brick schoolhouse had not only the Native Americans, but the local whites as well. Well, at the time, the Native Americans didn't cut their hair. And so they have very long, flowy hair. Well, they had a lice problem. And to address this lice problem, a lot of kids or a lot of the community built this new school where mainly white kids went. So the boarding school kind of concept kind of took off from there. Here's more actually at East Valentine, tied down train. I believe it was probably because of the holidays and just lack of crews and ports not being able to take trains was tied down. Eastbound train grinding up the grade. Here's Amtrak number 3, making its station stop in Flagstaff. That was always fun, especially during the winter. I go out, going to school in Flagstaff and NAU. The drive to the depot from my dorm room was less than 5 minutes. So in case William or the other Amtrak guys I knew, I would come on down. If they were on time, just hang out there, chat for a little bit. Here's at the top of the Arizona Divide at Reardon, about 7,400 feet above sea level. Light snow going on, but there was plenty of snow that fell the night before. This is just east of Reardon, the Flagstaff local coming through. Flagstaff local goes on duty in Flagstaff Monday through Friday, about 6 a.m., 7 a.m., depending on the time of year. They run at this time, they ran as far west as Belmont, and they go down to Winslow once that operation is now changed. And then here again, Crozier Canyon, the famous Valentine curve. Here's a meet, same spot as the local, and it's taken out actually the same day as that local shot. Can't remember what this train was, but the westbound was a westbound Winslow to Phoenix Z train. Winslow, small terminal, but a lot of the Z trains that run Kansas to LA, New York to LA, they'll make a set out in Winslow. They have a block of cars that go down to Phoenix. Once they got enough cars in, they'll run the Winslow to Phoenix train. Runs about daily. Another westbound train climbing the grade through Flagstaff. Here's Maine. Maine is one of the steeper parts. This is where I was telling you about where I came through a train. We had to go use all the brakes full service to keep it controlled down the hill. As you can see, it's pretty steep grade going down. Eastbound stack train stopped on Main 1 as another eastbound Z train overtakes them. And then this is looking west at that same location at Maine. And here's Flagstaff on the west side of town. 2 stack trains meeting. And this is on the east side of town between East Flagstaff and McPetrich. And this is kind of known as Railhead. This is where the Flagstaff local goes on duty. Paneria Dog Food Factory is right here off to the right. You see stack trains comes down a heavy grade. This is all this undulation that goes on this subdivision. This is down Williams Junction, not on the Seligman sub. This is on the Phoenix line, the Phoenix subdivision. Phoenix to Willow Springs Z9 coming through. They're only a mile away from joining the Transcon. This was the original main line prior to the Crookton cutoff. The William Depot for the Grand Canyon Railway is right back in here. And the Phoenix subdivision's dark territory, track warrant control. This signal is just a distance signal to protect Williams Junction since you'll be joining a signal territory. This is William Junction looking towards the west of an eastbound train coming over the little hump at Williams. Kind of want to take note of these yellow flags down here. These are little speed boards to let an engineer, the train crew know that there is a temporary speed restriction 2 miles ahead from this location. So that's always been a warning. In I believe it was the start of 2020, BNSF stopped using these yellow flags on PTC territory because they believed they were not needed anymore, as PTC would let you know when you are approaching a speed restriction area. There has been mixed reviews. The main reason the railroad said that they got rid of this was maintenance away, was reporting their number one injury was because of placing yellow flags or red flags. Don't know how much truth that is. That's what I've been told, but I know a lot of train crews missed having those flags. Also in the time of 2016, 2017, Union Pacific was doing a lot of track work on their Southern Transcon through Southern Arizona. And so as a result, a lot of their trains detoured over to Northern Transcon. This was a fun sight to see. At the time, there wasn't that much power variety out there. There's just a lot of orange. So it was very nice to see a little bit of UP yellow out there. Here was one day Amtrak was running as always behind schedule, and that day it had a really cool City Rail leader. City Rail is a leasing company, and some of you may know, and it just happened to find itself on the point of this train. The original crew that brought this train out of Albuquerque could not make it to Kingman in hours of service, and they got dog caught at Hackberry Road, which is just about 10 miles to the east of this location, and they were going to Kingman, which is about from that location roughly about 30 miles. So the LA crew in Kingman vanned out to get the train. Here's another coming through the SAG at Darling, which is a few miles east of Flagstaff. During the summer months, you can catch Amtrak if they're on time. It'd be first light, absolute first light there. They might have to be a couple minutes late to get sunrise there. This day, it was a little bit in the winter, as you can tell with the mountains having a little bit of snow, and Amtrak was running late. Had one of their heritage locomotives on the point, so I made sure to make the effort to go out there that morning and try to get a photo of it. Here's another Amtrak running late going through Valentine. This is the other end of the schoolhouse that I talked about earlier. And this is looking down from Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff. Lowell Observatory was the location where Pluto was discovered. And so if you look down, you can see Amtrak performing their station stop as an eastbound BNSF train goes by with their flashing rear marker going through town. And here's Winslow, Amtrak number 4. If it's on time during the summer, you can catch in daylight sometimes into the spring or fall. This day was summer. They were running on time. Maybe a couple minutes behind schedule, but it was pretty early in the morning. San Francisco peaks still with some snow, so it was late spring. Fun fact: San Francisco peaks, the highest point in Flagstaff. They have seen snowfall every month of the year at some point. Then here's Amtrak number 3 performing their station stop in Kingman. This is a crew changing location. They had the Toys for Tots, salute our soldiers or veterans locomotive on the point. Then here's another day Amtrak was running real late. They need a little bit of help from BNSF, so they got themselves an SD40. So this is pretty cool to see an SD40 in the 21st century lead a train at 70 miles an hour on the Santa Fe main line. Yeah. And that's the thing too. A lot of the bridges out there on the Southern Transcon still show Santa Fe on them, and they're in pretty good condition. And here we go, about 70 miles an hour down the road. Here's the Kingman Local. Kingman Local runs between Nelson Plant, which is just east of Peach Springs, to Kingman. They go as far west as Mechanico, which is only about 5 miles east or west of Kingman. They're coming back from the mine, and they got all their train to deliver. They had CN motors on the point. At this time, foreign motors were still pretty rare. There was still, at this time, there wasn't as universal PTC between the road, between all the freight railroads. So it's quite exciting to see a foreign leader. And it was during monsoon season, and I remember just getting drenched for this shot. Now, this is taken this last winter. At this point, PTC was more uniform between all the leaders. Didn't matter if you had a CN, NS, BNSF leader. As long as it had PTC, it will work. So here we had a loaded grain train coming through with a Canadian Pacific Geo on the point. And here coming out of Angel, which is about halfway between Winslow and Flagstaff, a steep grade. Westbound manifest is really working hard up the grade with an SD70 Mac SD70 Mac CSX leader. Generally, whatever your horsepower per ton ratio is generally what your speed might be at this location. So on these heavy manifest trains, you might be doing about 15 miles an hour up the hill. I remember this, I was in class one day going at NAU, and I got a text from a friend. He's like, "Hey man, just to let you know, there's a westbound train coming out of Winslow with a bunch of CSX motors on old Dash 8s. I've never shot a Dash 8 before. I was well before my time." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm in class, And fortunate that we had a short day that day. And the second I get out, ran to my dorm room, grabbed my camera, got in the truck, and just hauled butt out to Darling. And it's about the only shot I got before the sun went down. Here's a Ferromex Gevo as a DP motor on a eastbound stack train going through Valentine. Ferromex motors you won't see as a leader out here on the main line solely because they do not have PTC. It is a pretty big requirement now in the 21st century railroading that you do need PTC on these locomotives. NS motors are starting to become more and more common on the Southern Transcon. There's a couple trains to the Z AUG San Bernardino. It comes from Augusta, Georgia. It's a run through interchange train with the NS as well as the Q NICLAC NYC New York. They interchange with the NS in Chicago and then Memphis, Tennessee for the Z, and they'll come through with their NS motors on the point. Here's the Z train again with the 2 NS motors and the CSX motor, CSX Givo, third out. This was a bare table when I started school. I think this was like my first week at NAU, so this was a great surprise. Relatively new SD70M-2 NS motor, and then a KCS Gray AC 4400 second out. And here's from the front yard of the house of a UP detour train coming through. Yeah. So here's Topak, the lowest point in the whole subdivision. This is the Colorado River Bridge, crossing the Colorado River. I wish I had taken more shots here. I have a few more. They're buried on the computer, but this is one of the drone shots I took. First time shooting the drone down there. Great area. It's always fun going over that bridge. I used the Mavic Air 2S. I really enjoyed it. I wish I got it sooner. Here's Kingman at the Kingman train station, where Amtrak performs their station stop. At this time, this is when a lot of the 700s and 4700 old war bonds started to become back into service. They were getting PTC'd. Because of the shortage of power, it was cheaper for BNSF just to install PTC on their older motors and to place a new order of locomotives. So it was nice starting to see these lead trains. Here's Kingman Canyon. This is where the grade separation happens. You have main 2 up on top, which is, like I said, about 1.4% grade. Then you have main 2 down here on the bottom for westbound trains, about 1.8. To go up the hill, if you need to go up the hill on main 1, I believe you have to be at least 3.0 HPT, which is most of your stack trains, about 2 horsepower per ton ratio. Here's that same one, the wash bridges in Kingman Canyon of an eastbound climbing up the grade. And here's your daily eastbound Z train, the hot LA to Willow Springs Z train. The nice thing about living on this portion of the Transcon is every afternoon, it seems almost like clockwork. So just a little bit after 4, you have the fleet of Z trains that leave LA first thing in the morning. And they usually follow in order of, you have the San Bernardino Alliance Z9, followed by the LA to Willow Springs Z8, fall right behind the LA to Willow Springs Z9, and the LA to New York City Z9, the San Bernardino to Willow Springs 9, and then the North Bay to Willow Springs 9. They almost come right at clockwork. Talking about the war bonds getting put on the lead with PTC. This was taken earlier this year, last summer. Ooh, now I don't remember, but it was definitely within the last 12 months. Westbound grain train in the siding with the BNSF 4719 being passed by a hot westbound Z with the 4704 on the point. It's a pretty cool sight. The first time in my life I've seen 2 war bonds on the main line on the point. So if that might date myself a little bit. Kingman's also known for the Kingman Terminal Railway. They're a short line industry owned by Patriot Rail. They have a couple switcher motors around there. They interchange with BNSF, the Kingman local that runs from Nelson. They get their cars from Winslow. They pick them up, take them down into here. They deliver to the Kingman Terminal Railway. Once they're done, they'll interchange back with the BNSF, and the BNSF crews will build an outbound train for them. Here's more of a switching operation there. Now we're going towards Wallapai. Again, this is more 70-mile-an-hour track section. Westbound train coming through in the evening. And you just see the grade differential just coming down through this big sag. You can see their eastbound Z train in the background. And looking in the opposite direction of an eastbound from that same location. Here's Yampai. Trains climb up Yampai. This is the Q Nickleck. Had a pair of NS motors on the point, climbing up the grade. Coming up westbound up the hill, it's a 1.7% grade and then right about this derail, it gets to about 1.8, 1.9 steepest part of the hill. It's common practice for the dispatcher once you top over the hill to find out what your speed was on the hard. They'll say, they'll come on the rail. What was your speed on the hard? And mainly once whatever your speed is should reflect your horsepower per ton ratio. If it doesn't, it gives the dispatcher enough time to determine if you need man helpers to go up Goff's Hill, because it's the same grade coming out of Needles going westbound. And we still do run man helpers out of Needles occasionally westbound. Here's Pica. This is just before you start climbing the grade up Yampai. Pretty steep, big sag, milepost 444. It's just one giant hump. So you take these big loaded grain trains that have 4 on the head end, 3 in the middle, 2 on the rear. It's quite an exciting process of you trying to control these DPs independently to get the train over the hill without breaking it. Then you can see an eastbound train coming down off of Yampai. There's that eastbound train once it got closer. Here's Audley. That's the next control point down the line. This is a eastbound train coming through at sunset. This was on the longest day of the year back in 2016. And then same spot, or actually, sorry, just down the tracks probably about a mile of 2 trains meeting. Again, just show the undulation. It's kind of ironic that there's all this undulation through here, yet we refer to this location as Audley Flats. Here's another actually, this is a relatively new service train. This is North Bay to Alliance Texas Z train. And it came through a pair of war bonds on the point. They weren't leading originally. This train usually comes through about midnight through this region. But I remember looking on the computer the night before, and it showed that these motors were leading, not these 2 war bonnets. Well, then I woke up in the morning and I saw that they were leading. I'm like, oh man, I gotta get out there. And I thought it was a computer error, but it went by the house and it had them on point. I'm like, oh crap. And so here we go, driving 70 miles an hour down the road, trying to keep up with them. And I had to drive about 40 miles before I finally got ahead of it. Here's closer towards Eagle Nest. It's on the Crookton cutoff line. This is an eastbound train towards sunset with the glint lighting. This is looking towards the east at Eagle Nest. Another westbound Z train coming through. And this is a more famous shot at East Eagle Nest. The Crookton cutoff was the way they were able to get rid of the 4% grade and go to a 1% grade was pretty much the whole line is zigzag like this all the way up the hill. And like I was saying earlier, this is all good for 70 mile an hour. Here's at Perrin, the next control point up the line. Westbound Z going down the hill, and eastbound double stack train meeting it. This is at closer towards Williams Junction, between Williams Junction and Perrin. Morning glint of a westbound Z coming through. This is taken in late January of this year, and I believe it was about 10 degrees. I remember it was really cold. It was a lot colder than I expected for that time of the year. Here's down at Bootlegger, as they refer it. Bootlegger is just the area of Williams, the railroad crossing. It's known as Bootlegger. It's big sag. A lot of knuckles happen here. On this side of the hill of the Arizona Divide between Flagstaff and Williams Junction, you have they always tell you to remember 51, 61, and 71. 50 milepost 351 is the top of the Arizona Divide. 361 is coming through Maine. So that's a place where we had to use all the brakes to come into the curve. And then milepost 371, which is here. And then there's all the big humps that you come over where it starts to get real steep. Another look at Williams Junction, looking towards the west of an eastbound in the evening. Now at Williams Junction, you have the Grand Canyon Railway. They run up between Grand Canyon and or Williams and Grand Canyon. This is during the bicentennial, or sorry, the centennial of the national parks when they double head. Here's during the winter, the Cowboys about to board the the train. Now during the summer, they'll have the horses out and they'll ride along the side of the train as the train comes to the stop, make it look like they're robbing the train. And during September, they do the man versus machine race, which is where the steam locomotive races professional cyclists from the Grand Canyon to Williams Junction. It's a very staged event because the steam locomotive was always going to win. And it got to the point where at this year, the steam locomotive was beating the cyclist so badly, they stopped the steam locomotive just behind this curve, just out of view for about an hour while they waited for the cyclists to come up so they can come through and do the photo op. Oh, you were right on. Here's the Alcos. The Alcos don't get used that often. If I remember correctly, the reason they were running that day was Pierre Lero had a photo charter going on. And me being a broke college student cannot afford Pierre Lero's photo charter. So I just went to a public railroad crossing to shoot them going by. Here's Maine again, looking eastbound of a looking west of an eastbound stack train climbing the grade. And then further up the line, the railroad crossing I was at to take the previous photos down there, and you kind of see just the sag that they had to climb up. Again, when eastbound trains are climbing through here, it's about 20, 25 miles an hour because of the grade. And it's a steady, on these eastbound trains, it's a steady great climb of between 20 and 30 miles an hour, pretty much from Needles all the way till you get to Flagstaff. Here's the top of the hill at Reardon, or top of the Arizona Divide. Westbound train about to crest over the hill. And this is at Reardon with the drone. This was the Super Bowl special with all their cars coming through. This was for when the Super Bowl was in Los Angeles. Yes, sir. And here's a westbound stack coming through Railroad Springs, which is about just a suburb of Flagstaff. I'm not really shouldn't say a suburb, but a neighborhood of Flagstaff. It was I spent a lot of time my freshman year hanging out back here. It's a nice little dirt road to go into the back and just hang out. It's cool hearing the trains coming through with the trees and whatnot. And here's down the Flagstaff train station. Like I said earlier, living about 5 minutes from the depot, especially during my freshman year, I came down to the station a lot, do a lot of night photography. I remember this night specifically because it was the first time, and I think the only time I've seen fog on the Arizona Divide. Here's a westbound Z train going by the station on a full moon. And this is a view from West Flagstaff. Downtown's down here. You can see it, if you have a bigger print of it or a more clearer print, you can see all the old signs and of the hotels, like the Hotel Monte Vista and whatnot. My dorm room, when I was living on the NAU campus, the start of NAU campus is about right here. And my dorm room was probably about just further off to the right. And I was able to see this part from one of the viewing areas in that dorm. My dorm room, unfortunately, faced south, not towards the track. So I messed that one up. Here's a McPetrick's westbound manifest train coming through. This one, I think this started my junior year, first weekend back up at school. Came out, met up with a friend of mine, Barry Spafora, and we shot this train there. It's a great way to start off the junior year. Here's down between McPetrick and Coconino on the eastern slope of the Arizona Divide. Got the snow cover San Francisco peaks. This was a Phoenix to Belen manifest train, and you might not think it's a manifest train with all those intermodal cars and bear tails on the head end, but that's the symbol they were running under that day. Here's at Coconino, westbound Kansas City to Barstow manifest train. Heavy storm light that day. It was closer towards the end of the semester, so we were coming up on a monsoon season, and the thunderstorms up in Flagstaff were always amazing. It was always a sight to see the storms and the weather roll through there. Here's Darling. Darling, and from my understanding, still the only place that has a original Santa Fe station sign on the train, at least in Arizona. I can't think of anywhere in California that I've been that had one. I don't know the New Mexico line or anything east of there on the Transcon, but that was always cool to see that it was still standing. Here's Darling. This photo kind of always meant a lot to me because this was on my first day I moved out to NAU. And so put all my stuff in the dorm room, got in the truck, and just went out taking photos. And this is the first place I went to was Darling, always a place I wanted to take photos. And so I was really happy to get this glint shot that day. Here's the Flagstaff local. This is also my freshman year, probably the second week, third week of school, running out to the overpass. And the way my schedule lined up my freshman year, I think my first class was like at 9:15 in the morning. So if I got up real early, I could go shoot morning light. And I had a gap in the afternoon, I can run back out to go get some photos. Here's the westbound stack train coming up through Darling. This is a sunrise. And I very rarely ever got up that early for photos, but I had a buddy of mine who was he was getting on Amtrak at Flagstaff to go east, and so Amtrak comes through about 4:30 in the morning in Flagstaff at that time. And so I met him up at the depot, and we chatted for a little bit before he boarded and got on. I'm like, well, I'm already up. Might as well go try to catch a train. And got this, and so that worked out really well. Here's morning light. This is a freshman year as well, before class. And a little bit further, a little bit west of Darling, you get the little curves going between Coconino and Darling. Got two BNSF trains meeting at with the San Francisco peaks in the background. Mount Humphreys right there, tallest point in Arizona. I believe it's 11,000 feet above sea level. This is peak season in the photo. You have the hot LA, the Willow Springs Z train coming through. Usually has about 150, 200 UPS loads on it. And they park the seats for this train. As you can tell, there's an eastbound stack train stopped waiting for this thing to get around it, which made it's kind of a weird decision to do because from this point on, all the way in the Winslow, it's all downhill. Every train's going to be doing 70 miles an hour. He's not going to catch up to it, but we got to stop and make sure it gets into town before everyone else. Here's a westbound stack in the morning, climbing up the grade at Angel. This is on Halloween of 2016 or 2017. And this is the super moon or the super eclipse from 2016. Same spot as of Angel, another westbound stack train climbing the grade. And here at Angel as well, there was Metrolink ordered their new locomotives. I don't remember the locomotive model, but they're all being delivered individually from the East Coast, from the NS, interchanged at Chicago. BNSF would take over. So it was always one locomotive, two gondolas as buffer cars, and the Metrolink locomotive in the middle. And this is Cain Diablo Bridge. Cain Diablo spans about, I believe, just about 500 feet from end to end. I don't remember what year the bridge was built. I should know about it because I've written about it, but I just don't remember. Cain Diablo is very famous being a Hells on Wheels kind of town. The famous stories there when the town was incorporated, the sheriff that was sworn in at 8 in the morning was dead by noon. It's yeah. Oh, tell me about it. It's so it was very well known for that story. There's a lot of ruins in the area, and the bridge. It's pretty cool to go out there. It's about 4 miles on a dirt road. A lot of people say it's a very rough dirt road. In my opinion, the maintenance away roads between like Maine and the top of the hill of Flagstaff are much worse than that road there. It's not too bad. Here's a more drone photo of the Cain to kind of give it an idea of the landscape of it and whatnot. Hike down a little bit. This is about as low as you can go in the Cain before just getting too steep. You can see down here the old ruins of the original bridge. There's a book called Arizona Railroads Volume 3 that talks about the railroad between Needles, California, and the border of Arizona and New Mexico. They said when the first bridge was built, the maximum speed over it was 5 miles an hour. Today, that bridge is good for 70 miles an hour. Here's another drone photo of a empty grain train coming through, and you can see the San Francisco peaks in the background. Just kind of give you an idea of just how bare the landscape is. And like I said, this is all one subdivision, and we've gone from river grade at the Colorado River through Kingman Canyon, Crozier Canyon, of Red Rocks, and through the pine trees of Flagstaff. Now we're in the open desert of Eastern Arizona. It's one of the few routes I've ever worked where there's such a variety in scenery in just one crew district. Again, here's a westbound train going over the hill or going over the bridge. Interstate would be behind you towards the south. So down this way. We're looking north. You can see some ruins down here, or not ruins, plateaus. I do not remember the name of those plateaus off the top of my head, but that's part of the Navajo Reservation up there. And I do believe the Navajo Reservation comes all the way down and ends just past the tracks. It's like there's a little sliver of it. I mean, you barely touch it. But there are residents that live out here. On the drive-in, you'll see some houses way out in the distance back on the top right corner of this photo. And you won't see in this photo, but if you were ever drive out there, there are still people that live on the reservation. When I was going to school, the kid who lived across the hall from me was Navajo, and he told me the way it worked on the reservation, well, at least on the Navajo reservation, everyone was open to the land wherever you wanted. You wanted to build a house in a random spot right there. There was no permit, no nothing. You could do whatever you want. You were allowed to build. And then here's two eastbound and a westbound train meeting on the bridge. I don't remember why, but the eastbound train had to stop here at Canyon Diablo, and they decided to stop right on the bridge. So that was kind of cool to see. They had just started to notch up, as you see with the smoke coming off some of the motors. As the eastbound or as the westbound climbs up the grade right up here. And so it was quite a sight to see. That's about the end of my slide. It's if you have any questions or comments, concerns about the territory or slide photos, you want to go back? Yeah, Chip. The crew preference in general has always been just we always get GEs out there. Very rarely do we ever get the EMDs. At the time prior to the decline in coal, BNSF managed the power so that your ES44 AC traction motors and your EMD ACEs, your Max, were all regulated to the coal pools. AC traction motors can pull a much heavier train on a steeper grade, but they weren't good. They didn't have to get up and go. These DC motors on a light Z train, slap it back, they can really get up to speed. But you put a load on them, they won't pull. AC motors, you can put them on a hill, like on Palmer Lake, you can stall them out and those wheels will grab. They won't burn the rail. DC motors, you stall them out, they'll just spin, and burn on the rails. So if you ever notice on the joint line, these coal trains are 2x2, 17,000 tons. That horsepower to ton ratio comes out to 0.9 to 1 horsepower per ton. Your grain trains, they'll have 2 motors on the head, 3 motors on the head, and maybe a couple on the rear. They'll be about 1.5 horsepower per ton ratio. But they'll still call man helpers for them because they're all DC motor locomotives and they'll need help to get over the hill. And so like there's times where I've had a manifest train going out in Needles, and we'll have all AC motors, and you can stop on a hill, kick off the air, boom, it'll pull. Those DC motors, they'll bounce before they start going. Yes, sir. I would say right now, probably about 70 in a 24-hour period, between 50 to 70 trains in a 24-hour period. You talk to guys like the old Santa Fe old heads that were working out there prior to the merger and even after the merger in the early 2000s, it was well into the 100, 110 trains a day. Yes, sir. So that Ferromex motor was actually a distributed power motor. Oh, there's a little bit of a lag. Was working as a distributed power motor, so it was not working as lead. There's no restrictions on it being anywhere in the consist other than lead, as long as it has DP capability between the head end and the rear if it's a DP motor. It was shoving away. The requirements for PTC, only the leader has to have PTC in it. So like prior to the power shortage, a lot of the locomotives, like your war bonnets, your old GE motors, they'd be trailing motors because they could be used. You didn't need the PTC. Now as PTC is required, you have to have it on the head, and they've been putting on more of the motors. No problem. Yes, sir. There are 15 of them. Number 8500 to 8514. I just had 8511 the other day coming from Sterling, and my engineer, we're inspecting locomotives. Part of the FRA regulations, you have to do a daily inspection on the locomotives. He comes with, hey man, look at that. It doesn't have a traction motor in there. Like, I know. And I kind of gave him the explanation that this is one of the few motors that doesn't. And there was, I don't have that much engineering knowledge, but we stopped at Hudson, just east of town. And when I kicked off the air, it didn't feel like it wanted to pull as well as other coal loads I've had. And even then, once we got up to speed between Bar and Hudson, doing about 40 miles an hour, and I'm getting wheel slip alarms on that thing, which was a common thing on those C4s, the ES44 C4s by GE. When they tested them, and I don't know how true this story is, but this is the story I've been getting. They first tested them to actually pass. They were on a manifest. It was 2 C4s, 2 -9s, and in the middle of the two, they have a GE test card to take all the computer data off of them. But when they stopped at Woodford's about 2.4% grade, they said, well, shut off the -9s. Let's see what these C4s can do. They kicked off the air. Well, that train rolled back about 5 cars. Those C4s just cannot pull. And as a result, that's why everyone was really shocked at BN from the locomotive engineer standpoint, that they ordered more of these tier 4 C4s. BNSF and Florida East Coast Railways are the only Class 1 railroads that have the C4 tier 4 locomotives. Yeah, those Warbonds, 600 series with the original Santa Fe order, they're still running around. A few of them have been getting PTC, so they're qualified to. Yeah, it's the 600 to like 615 or 612, one of those. Those were original Santa Fe orders. They have been rebuilt, and they have been converted into the modern GE Gevos. Even though they're still the old -9s, they still have the old Santa Fe logos inside and whatnot. But the computer software and the engines in them are the newer GEs. I've never ran them. I've had them as a conductor, and they're just very loud and old. I'd much rather, as a foamer, I love seeing these old -9s. They're great. But as a railroader, the ceilings are dangling. They're loud. They rattle. They're not a smooth ride. So
70 mph. That's cute.
Oh, is that deal? That's
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Aaron, top speed over Canyon Diablo, 70 mph, and just crawling up Yampai.
well, yeah. Okay. So like Deal gets to go 90 miles an hour on the whole subdivision. He does like 45 miles an hour up Yampai, and me
60.
Oh, okay. Well, here you go. 60 miles an hour. Oh, there he is. Yeah. So he gets to go much faster than me, but at the same time, he also gets to follow my trains. So.
Yeah, well, and then you were bringing up the Crookton cutoff. The Crookton cutoff is actually 1 mile longer than the original line.
Okay.
Because remember, you got milepost 418A.
Yeah.
So it's actually only like 2,500 feet longer. So
okay.
You probably get some Uber rail fan. They'd be like, "Oh, it's not actually a cutoff because it's longer." Yeah, well, it shaves off an hour of travel. So.
Yeah. So what he's referring to is the milepost. Mileposts on the subdivision start from 0 at Belen, and they increase their way towards Barstow all the way up to San Francisco. San Francisco like milepost 1,000 something, but at Crookton it's milepost 418, and then just after that there's milepost 418A, and that's where the original line branched off at. Yes, sir. Oh, really? Huh. Yeah, so from my understanding, a lot of the railroad police, they have a lot of territory to cover. I believe there's a special agent based out of Flagstaff, and then or Kingman, and then the other one's based out of Barstow. So there's quite a huge range of territory these guys have to cover. And from my personal experience of just taking photos out there, they go in waves. I'll see them. I'll see a special agent like almost every day for like about a week period. Then I just won't see them again for months. And there was one time we got pulled over by a special agent. We were at Walpi, taking photos there, right on the right, not on the right way. We weren't near the tracks, but there's no question like, why is someone there taking photos? And he pulls up and he starts giving us a whole big deal how you're on railroad property. And technically we weren't. Railroad property goes only 50 feet from the center of the main tracks. We're well beyond that, but I'm not going to argue with a man with a gun. And so we're talking about it. He asked for all of our IDs. Well, I was with the Amtrak engineer, and Deal knows him, Ben Battles. Well, Ben didn't have his driver's license. So all he had was his Amtrak ID that says locomotive engineer. So that kind of got a real interesting topic when guys like, well, why you work for the railroad and why are you hanging out here by the tracks? Well, we're just taking photos. We're just hanging out. Nothing crazy. He made a bigger deal than what it should have been. But it is what it is. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. There was, and now that you mentioned that, and I don't remember who told me this, but it was someone at work. During World War II, there was a big concern that Canyon Diablo and Topak Bridge were going to be targets for the war because it'd be such a big issue with infrastructure. And there was a lot of security at that time. I don't have any solid proof to this other than it's just wise tales being told back and forth in the cab. So. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Crozier Canyon was as well. You can still go when you still go through on the train, you can still see a little kind of like rock formation where someone was hiding. I believe it's more towards as was a guard location for the military, but a lot of people, because it's just made out of rock, little kind of thing, think it was train robbers in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So who knows? It's again, the wise tales I get on the train is absolutely amazing, but it's also fun. I'm sitting in the cab with 12 hours with a guy who's got 30 something years of engineer seniority that's seen all these changes. And it's always been fun to pick their brains because they kind of appreciate that you have someone in the cab that wants to know about this stuff other than just having some guy that wants to just like get across the road and fast as he can. So I had one engineer, he's number one in the seniority roster out of Needles. And it was a long night, stop and go kind of day, all nighter. And almost every place he stopped, he would tell me, hey, go out on the motor. There's a place down here. Look, like he knew where all these little cans were that he's seen. He just never had the time to go out and stop. So he's like, hey, go get that. So I come up, all right, cool. I got a can of like some old, like I don't even remember what it was, but like old cans from the early 1900s. Like, oh, that's cool. And like that cab was filled with random crap by the end of the time we got to Winslow. And like we're going through Flagstaff, and I said, hey man, like I don't. Like me, it's like kind of cool, but it's not really railroad related. It's random stuff you find by the tracks. Like, do you want any of this? Like, I just been running all over the cab to pick this stuff. Oh no, I don't. So like between Flagstaff and like the top of the hill, there's just a bunch of random crap now that I just threw out the window when we're coming through.
I was curious, have you guys been told by the railroad that you're supposed to call in people that look like they are taking pictures and they don't belong there?
One of the training videos we had to do when we hired out, we have to do it every couple of years. They said like suspicious activity. They said, yeah, if you see like a van and like 4 people come out of it, you might want to report it. I'm like, I don't know. They look like foamers to me and they're not going to do anything, So It's
They
most guys
They
don't
don't
care.
have bags of weed or guns
Yeah.
or something like
Well,
that.
and like that's the thing. This is the nice thing about the new generation of railroader. Like kind of my the people that I hired out with that there's not this negative stigma against rail fans as there was with the old heads. It's definitely a more open-minded railroad. And I think that's also why you're seeing the changes in demands because before the older generation, even though they had the during the early days of after the post merger, the availability policy, you had to be marked up one time every 30 days. But you had guys that they wanted to work every day. They could take Christmas off. They can take the birthdays off, but they never did because they were all about grind, grind, grind. Well, you've now have a generation of railroads those have all retired. You have people, family who grew up without having their father around, and they know how important it is to be around their child. They rather take that quality of life issue now over the money. It's just and that's kind of why we're in this gridlock that we are now. This isn't just a railroad thing. This is all blue collar jobs are starting to see this issue. Yeah. Anything else? Any more questions? Please. Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
So for next month, I don't have an announcement yet to make for the program, but that'll be coming soon. And obviously Bruce is working on putting together the next newsletter. And if we could get the chair racks and hang up the chairs, I know the church would appreciate that. Thanks for coming, and hopefully you will make it next month. And thanks to the folks out there in TV land, right?
Dave.
Anything else we need to say? Somebody else on there, Nathan?
Hey, Dave. It's Steele. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we're trying to end the show, but go ahead, Will. It's okay.
Yeah. Hey, just because I couldn't get in earlier. This is the last call for semaphores south of Las Vegas. They are putting the replacements up as we speak on the Santa Fe.
Yeah. Sorry to pick on you. That is a worthy announcement. Yeah.
So, no, this is the last hurrah for the Santa Fe semaphores south of Vegas, all the way to past Lamy. I wouldn't expect them to be up past October. So
Going fast. Okay. Thanks for
Yep.
letting us know on that. Any other announcements from down south?
no,
Will Deal, can we go home now?
you are home.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming, buddy. Yeah. Thanks for getting out of your kitchen. Yeah. Thanks for running this, Nathan Holmes. Yeah. Thanks for the announcements, Chip. Yeah.
Where's your bag? Your bag. Did you retire? Yeah.